Hi, everybody. I am Patrick Lloyd, and I'm the instructor for the laboratory section of Chem 12 here for section 3. So it's 3L. Professor Mackenzie is your lecture instructor. I will be handling the laboratory part of the course. So I want to go over the syllabus and welcome you to the course here in this video. I will probably be posting videos from time to time to talk a little bit about announcements, but mainly to go over some of the general ideas of the laboratory, such as issues of significant figures and scientific notation and such. So let me go ahead. This is the bright space shell here. This is Chem 1200, section 03L. Again, I'm doing the laboratory. Um, on the front page here, you'll see there's announcements. You can see all the announcements here on Brightspace. This announcement right here has the lab syllabus. So if you click on that link, you'll be able to open up and read this syllabus. And I do recommend that you spend some time, read the syllabus on your own, make notes on it if you have questions. Pay attention to the due dates, and then reread it every couple of weeks anyways, maybe even once a week, just so that you can stay in tune with everything. There's a calendar here of all the upcoming, these are really due dates. It says events, but these are all due dates. And it mainly has to do with what we call these virtual laboratories that you're going to be doing on ALEX. Okay. So let me shift over to the lab syllabus. And I'm going to go over the lab syllabus here. Okay. So this is Chem 1200. It's an asynchronous laboratory. So all of the work that you're going to be doing is online. Okay, so we won't be having personal meetings in the laboratory. This is my contact information right here. I'm in the Department of Physical Sciences at Kingsborough. There are a couple of good ways to get in touch with me. One is by texting on either messages or WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram. The number for me is right here. You can also use this email address right here to get in touch with me. I am actually on campus this semester, so if you happen to be on campus on Thursdays, we could probably arrange an in-office appointment in room S316, which is in the science building. I also have a Zoom account that we can use to do a virtual office hour if you'd like to do that. Okay. The goals in this course or in this laboratory is to give you a sense of the chemical sciences with emphasis on laboratory technique, understanding precision and accuracy, laboratory equipment. Some of the concepts are acid-base chemistry, precipitation chemistry, reduction oxidation chemistry, equilibrium, spectroscopy, qualitative analysis, electrochemistry, and chemical synthesis. So the virtual labs that you're going to be doing cover a wide variety of experiments. Okay. Now, the way this is set up is you're going to be doing, essentially comes out to 13 assignments, which works out to about one a week. So it's not a particularly rigorous schedule. You'll be able to do the laboratory in a reasonable amount of time. You should be able to anyways. The first assignment we will have you do is to what we call laboratory safety training. And this involves watching some videos that are produced by the American Chemical Society, filling out laboratory safety films, and taking a laboratory safety quiz on Brightspace. So you will see an announcement come up with some of the details of how to get access to that. The access should be through Brightspace. You should see the announcement on that coming up very close to the beginning of the semester, which is Thursday, the September 6th. So it should be coming in maybe on the 4th or the 5th, a day or two before classes begin. The next set of assignments are 12 virtual laboratories, which are done on ALEX, which is the online homework and exam system that you're using for this course in the lecture as well, okay? So these are virtual labs, which will allow you to do observations, calculations, manipulations, and then analysis, okay? So some details about these assignments. The laboratory safety training is mandatory for this course. You have to get it done. Um, and it's going to show up, like I said, it'll show up how to get linked to the videos and how to get links to the files and then how to do finally a safety quiz. Okay. So that'll all pop up later on. The due date for that one is September 29th. I made it a little bit late in the semester because sometimes the links, I don't get the links up until right at the beginning of the semester. So I wanted to make sure that people have plenty of time to get that done. So that'll be due on September 29th. And then the virtual labs is all done through the course folder on alex.com. So that will show up in your lecture Alex assignments. Okay, you should actually see them on the calendar of Alex as well, the same calendar you're using for the lecture. Okay, so here are some of, just give you an idea of what you're going to be doing. There's a tutorial. The first one's a tutorial. That's due September 15th, Sunday, September 15th. The second one is using volumetric glasswork for dilutions. That's due on the 22nd. If you take a look, they're all due on Sunday and they're due 1 week apart. Okay. So notice, be aware that there are holidays kind of popping in and out over this time period. So that's why you have access to all of these laboratories at the beginning of the course. In theory, you could just knock all these out in the first week because each one takes really probably about an hour on average. So you could actually do them all in 1 week. It comes out to like 12 hours of work. It would be a lot, but you could do it in the first week. So be aware that if you have any like obligations coming up in terms of trips, or holidays and all of that, you have plenty of time coming up for these to get them done beforehand. So, stay ahead. My recommendation would be stay ahead of it. So get them in at least a week early so that if something happens and you have to miss a whole week of work, you don't have to figure out what you're going to do. You don't have to scramble. You've already stayed ahead. And then once you get back into the swing of things, again, jump ahead a week or so. Because again, these things really don't take that long. They're roughly an hour's work to be able to get them done. Okay. So we're going to cover, dilutions, and oh, I did want to point out to notice on the 29th, there's two things listed here that I do. One of them is the lab safety information, right? The videos, the quiz, and the safety forms. That's done on the 29th. But there's also one of the Alex equilibrium constant on spectrophotometry. That one's also on the 29th. Okay. And then it goes back to 1 a week. Okay. So kinetics, which is something you're covering, enzymes, which is also a form of kinetics, pH of antacids, titration curves, buffers, standard reduction potentials, gas chromatography, qualitative analysis, paper chromatography. And you'll notice the last one's due on December 1st. So again, try to get these done early. It'll help you out in the lecture if you can do them quickly and early. That way, as you get closer to the end of the semester, generally lectures do tend to speed up close to the end because there's generally material you got to get through and all that. So if you can stay ahead of the game in the lab, that will free up some time at the end of the semester, particularly if you're taking other classes where you have papers due at the end and finals and all of that. You can knock all this stuff out, probably mid-November. And then, from mid-November on into December, you don't have to worry about your laboratory anymore. Okay, there is no lab final. There is no lab exam this semester. So all you have to do are get these reports due. Okay. So the grading is essentially 10 points per laboratory. So the lab safety quiz and all of that, the training, that's mandatory. You have to get that done. That's 10 points. And then you have the virtual labs. There's 12 of those. So that's 120 points. They're 10 points each for a total of 130 points. And then what I'll do is I'll give a percentage laboratory score to your lecturer instructor, who will then include that in the calculation of your final grade for the course. You don't get a separate grade for the laboratory. It's just rolled in as a percentage of your course grade. Notice here for the virtual labs, it says 8 points for the lab and 2 points for the post-lab discussion. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that um, in a moment. But first, let me just make one here that you are allowed to you are allowed to miss one virtual lab. So if something like some emergency really does pop up and there's nothing you can do about it, one missed virtual lab will be dropped from your score. Okay. If you miss more than one, then you just get 0 for the ones other than the first one. All right. So let me talk a little bit about the post lab. So notice it's 8 points for the lab. So that's 8 points for doing the virtual lab on Alex, and then 2 points for the post lab discussion. So the 2 points for the post lab discussion, that shows up in terms of your Brightspace. So this you will actually do on Brightspace. So let me share this one here. Okay, so the virtual labs you do on Alex, but then you do a post-lab report on the virtual lab that you did on Brightspace. Okay, so if you look under the upcoming events on Brightspace, so I'm back in the shell here for the laboratory. See what it says here, virtual lab 1 discussion due September 15th. So it's due at the same time that the virtual lab is done, which is 11:59 p.m. on a Sunday, right? So what you want to do is, again, don't get in a situation where you're trying to do this virtual lab 11 p.m. on Sunday night. That's just a recipe for failure. That's really what you're trying to do, is you're trying to fail if you're doing that. You're going to have to do the virtual lab and then do a post-lab discussion. So you want to make sure this is done well in advance of the due date. Okay, so I'm going to click on this first one here, virtual lab discussion, virtual lab 1. And these are instructions. And the instructions are the same for all 12 of the assignments. I put it in each time as the same instructions, just so you can see it before you write it up, but it's essentially the same thing. So it says here, write a 2-paragraph post-lab report of your results for the experiment. Be sure to use proper grammar and punctuation. Be sure to save what you type in case your internet connection is lost before you submit, right? So what you can do is you can just type it in like Google Documents or Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word, and then just once you're done typing it up, copy and paste it into Brightspace when you submit it, okay? You're just going to have a little text window, so you can just copy and paste it right in. And that's generally what I would do, because I wouldn't trust, um, anything that may not save it, right? So Brightspace may not save it if you get it all typed in there, and if you want to do it for a little while and then come back to it, it's better to do it on a word processor anyways, okay? So copy paste is probably the way to go. In the natural sciences, your results. So you're talking about your results. Like, what did you get for this particular experiment? What did you get? And so those are called results. And results can be qualitative or quantitative. So in the terms of qualitative, these are results that generally are not numerical. So for example, I might say, look, I looked at these plants in the winter time and they were gray or they were brown. I looked at the plants in the summertime and they were green. That'd be a qualitative assessment. There's no numerical value assigned to that. Okay, here's an example I typed up in here. The reaction formed a green precipitate, which I was able to separate from the liquid. That'd be qualitative because you're really just discussing the quality of your observations of what you're observing. On the other hand, you can have quantitative results, and quantitative generally are measurements. We call them measurements. They have numerical values. So quantitative results, quantitative with an N, those are results that are numerical. They generally have a number associated with them, a value associated with them. They may or may not have units. So for example, we isolated 3.5545 grams of precipitate for a 91% yield. That's quantitative, 2 quantitative results, right? One of them is how many grams you obtained. The other one is what your percent yield was. So that's 2 quantitative results there. Okay. So once so what you're going to do is you're just going to discuss what your results were. So you do this virtual lab, Some of them are going to have quantitative results, like you figured out what the percentage was, or you figured out what the absorbance was, that kind of thing. Some are going to be qualitative, like, oh, we got to precipitate for this one. That means that this ion reacts with that ion to form a precipitate. So you're going to discuss what those are. Just a couple paragraphs. Um, Once you've discussed your results, write about what you learned in the experiment. So be very specific. And what I want you to do is for that particular virtual lab, write a few sentences about what specifically about that experiment you learned when you did that virtual lab. Okay. So, sometimes the results are going to be pretty minor. So there may not be a whole lot to discuss. In that case, you can just do one paragraph of your results and then maybe a paragraph on what you learned. Sometimes if you have more, like you're doing more things in the experiment, you might want to do two paragraphs on the results and then a paragraph on what you learned. So sometimes you might have two paragraphs, sometimes you might have three. I do want you to, in terms of your writing, to stay away from very broad statements that could apply to anything. So things like, oh, the experiment was good, or we got good results. Those are very generic statements that don't really give us any insight into what you did, what your results were, or what you learned in the experiment. We want to have some more specific claims like, I expected the density to be closer to 2.7 because I know the density of aluminum is 2.7, but I actually got a density of 3.2, which is not even that close to the density of aluminum. So you really want to be very specific about what your results are, and also try to be specific about what you learn. Like you might say something like, whoa, I didn't really realize that you could have a metal that's less dense than water, or something like that. Something, that piqued your curiosity about that particular experiment. Okay. And then the way I have this set up is it's just a text entry. So you just come down here, you click on this guy right here, and you're going to have a little text box in here. Notice it does have editing features. So if you need, after you copy and paste it over from a word processor, oh, I forgot to bold that, or I forgot to underline that, you can do it here. Okay. If you're typing in chemical formulas, I do expect you to have subscripts in the formulas and parentheses for if you need it and that sort of stuff. So use chemical nomenclature properly. I never have used the Brightspace text submission. I just use Google Docs, and Google Docs allows you to like put in subscripts and stuff like that. So, and superscripts for charges and things like that. So I just use that and then copy and paste it over. Okay. So then just make sure you hit submit, and that's your text submission. Okay. So again, essentially what you're looking at are two parts of your virtual labs: 8 points for doing the experiment. And by the way, for the virtual labs, I've set up Alex to allow you to do it 3 times, and it will take the highest score of the three you do. So if you do it once and then you just realize you got like 85% on it and you want higher than that, you can do it a second time, you can do it a third time until you get up to 100%, if that's possible, right? And so you can do it up to 3 times without any penalty. That's for each one. Okay. So notice the due dates. I just want to point out the due dates here. I set them all available. Everything on Brightspace is available in terms of the virtual labs. Everything is available on the Alex, I believe, is online. Again, your lecture instructor is setting the course demarcation for Alex, but when I looked, it looked like everything was active. So you can do the virtual labs on Alex as well. And then I will update you when it comes to the issue of the connecting Brightspace to the lab safety videos, sheets to fill out, safety forms to fill out, and quiz, and then the quiz as well. Okay. So that's upcoming, but I would recommend, you can just go ahead and work on these virtual labs. I'll mention about the virtual labs that it's best if you use Google Chrome as a browser. I have tried to use Safari on a MacBook, and it didn't work. It didn't allow me to. So if you have the most updated version of Safari, maybe it would work, but I recommend Google Chrome. I don't know about the other browsers, but you can always get in touch with Alex help desk as well if you're having technical problems with getting you really want to do it on a computer. You want to do it on a laptop or a PC, um, a desktop, I should say, because I don't think it works that well on, the iOS or the Android systems. It's best to be used on an actual computer. Okay. And that's pretty much it. So I just want to point out that um, feel free to get in touch with me if you have any issues or questions. One of the things that I've noticed about the virtual labs, just to kind of give you some heads up, is that usually the biggest problem people have with the virtual labs is when they're entering in numbers into the boxes, they get the wrong number of sig figs. And if you get the wrong number of sig figs, it doesn't take the number. It just says, nope, that's wrong. You got to get it. And so it makes you get the right number of sig figs. So if you are rusty on sig figs, that could end up getting frustrating. So, what I'm going to do is in the next week, I will make another short video and I'll post that on YouTube for you to be able to see kind of like what the issue is in terms of sig figs, like how you want to think about sig figs, because it ends up being important for the virtual labs. Other than that, most people have a pretty good time with the virtual labs. I will at the end of the semester ask you for your feedback on the virtual labs. But for the most part, I found that people sort of like them. They're not too bad. Okay. Um, and I think that's pretty much it. So I hope you have a great semester. Again, it's always a good idea at this stage to check announcements for any class you're taking online or even in person, to check for announcements twice a week. And so, maybe like on Thursday and then again on Monday, or Thursday and Sunday, something like that, a few days apart. Get into the habit of checking every couple weeks. I will be posting at least one announcement a week. When I have time, I make videos out of them as well. But if I don't have time and I'm rushed, it may not be a video. It may just be a text announcement that I'm posting onto Brightspace. Okay. And again, feel free to get in touch with me. Like I said, I am on campus a little bit this semester. But since you're taking an online asynchronous course, you may actually be at another college, or your schedule might be busy and you can't make it onto campus. That's fine. We can stay in touch and we can have a Zoom meeting if you want to do that. Or we can just communicate via email or texting. And that works well for me as well. Okay. So have a great semester. I hope you get off started. Try to get going quickly. Um, I have found that the people that do the best are the ones that just hit it going quickly. They even before the course starts, they start doing the work. And I want to make that stuff available, the work available for you so that you can kind of pace yourself at your own pace this semester. Okay. So take care, have a great semester, and stay in touch.